Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for another episode of the PEDEGO Podcast. All about the e-bike revolution, the entrepreneurs who are making it happen, and the love stories of those just riding along. And today, well, we got a little bit of both. We got an entrepreneur who's joined the e-bike revolution himself. Welcome, if you will, to our show, the Pedego dealer from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I believe we have Aaron on. Aaron, introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Aaron Maynard, and I've been a Pedego dealer for about 6.5 years now. And I've been a Pedego bike owner for over 8 years, right here in sunny Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It's a great place to ride a Pedego.
I love Myrtle Beach. It's such a cool place. One of our show hosts, where I'm here on a radio station, one of our show hosts just came back, big family reunion. They run one of those big beach houses and had, 50 people, 20 people show up and everything here. That's the cool thing to do. And it's this long boardwalk and this long beach there in Myrtle Beach, if you've never been there. Perfect place to ride a bike. But not necessarily the most obvious choice for a colonel in the United States Air Force. Tell me about that journey from being in the United States Air Force to joining the e-bike revolution.
Well, it is kind of a strange story. I was stationed in Germany, actually, and I got assigned when I was in Germany. I got assigned to the U.S. capital, the U.S. Embassy in London, England. So I moved from Germany to England, and when I moved to London, I knew that riding a bike was going to be my best way to get to work because you really couldn't drive. My house was about 7 miles away from the embassy, and it would have taken me probably 2 or 3 hours, and I'm not kidding you, to drive my car, which I did once when I took all my stuff to hang on the wall, and then I actually drove one more time, and that's when I left the embassy. Those were the only 2 times I ever drove. But otherwise, I either took the tube, rode the bus, or which ended up being a much better option, was to ride a bike. So I bought a Pedego Electric Bike, sight unseen. I actually Googled. I needed a bike that I could ride in the city, so I Googled a bike called City Commuting Bike, and Pedego just had released a bike called the Pedego City Commuter, and through great marketing, that video popped up on my screen, and I bought it right there on the spot, and I've been in love with Pedegos ever since.
All right. This is Germany. I don't know. Does it snow? Is it lousy weather? Can you ride an e-bike all year?
I didn't buy it when I was in Germany. I bought it when I lived in the UK.
Oh, in the
London.
UK. All right. Well, even more so.
It doesn't really snow in London, although it can be awfully cold. So I had to buy all kinds of, gear to ride.
So one of the questions I always have is this just a California thing? Is this just a sunshine thing, sunbelt, sun states? Or can people ride even in maybe not snow, but inclement weather and rain and fog and stuff like England has?
Yeah. You must have been to London before, because I did that almost every day. Actually, no, it did rain frequently, though. And so you can certainly ride in the rain. You can ride in the snow as well. Some people actually have studded tires on their Pedegos.
Really?
They ride them in the snow.
All right.
And we also have a model that you could ride in the snow as well called the Trail Tracker. But on my bike, I had the City Commuter. And so I bought these bar mitts, actually, because it got so cold my hands would freeze. And it's like these, you probably don't know this because you're in Southern California, but snowmobiles sometimes have them. And then these things that go over the handlebar, and you stick your hands in them, and you can still function. You can do everything with your brakes and everything, but it keeps your hands warm. And I bought shoe insulators, these little kind of foam things that I'd wear over my shoes. Mind you, I wore a suit every day when I lived in London.
I was going to say, you're not like I don't know, you're not a exercise coach or something. You work in the United States Embassy here, right?
Yeah, I wore a suit. So I would have my suit on. Sometimes I'd fold my jacket, my coat, and put it in the bags that I had on the back of the bike. But typically I wore it. And I had like a long raincoat, and I wore a helmet, of course, because I'm in it anyway, but in London in particular. And I had to get special glasses because it would rain, and it would be like someone squirting a fire hose at your face. But I really made it work. And I will tell you that the best part of my day, and I'm not kidding you, was going to work and coming home. I mean, imagine riding your bike through a bustling city like London, right past Harrods and right past the pubs and flower shops.
St. Paul's Cathedral and all the...
all right. I didn't actually ride it there on the way to work because it was on the other direction, but I did pass, Buckingham Palace and
all the things.
Everything. It was like a tour every day, and it was fascinating and exhilarating. And so by the time I got to work, I was so pumped up and ready for the day. And then on the way home, usually on the way home, I would take it a little slower, and maybe I would stop off somewhere. Maybe I would
little pub along the
go
way,
through
maybe
the park. Yeah. I'm not advocating drinking and riding, but
but
it could have happened. Let's put it that way.
Right, it's a meandering trail home. You never know who you meet along the way. So I've never asked anybody this question because I'm trying to understand this whole e-bike enthusiasm, this e-bike revolution, as we call it here. And I'm wondering, you seem to bring up something I hadn't thought about before. Is the joy of riding an e-bike, I guess any bike, getting back out into the open and experiencing the world in a way that when you're closed in a car, you're closed off from. I can see some of that stuff, but somehow I'm in my own bubble. I got the music playing or whatever. I may not even be aware of what's around me other than the traffic, but I'm not really paying attention to the sights anymore. Does it, because you can feel the wind in your face, because you can feel the fog in are you more engaged? I never thought about that.
You are in such touch with your surroundings. It's so, you see so much more. If I took the tube to work, which I seldom did, but I did, you don't see anything except a million other people that maybe don't.
There's subway, you're packed in. If you take the bus,
you're packed in. If you take the bus, it's kind of nice because you can just look out the window. But typically when I rode the bus, I'd have my head buried in my phone or reading a newspaper or something. But when you're on your bike, you have to be engaged with everything around you. The smell of the cars, like I said, the flower shops, perfume. When you ride by Harrods, you could smell the perfume.
Really?
If you rode by a restaurant, you could smell the curries and the different foods, whatever they were preparing.
There's no smell in a car. There's no smell in a car. Right?
Yeah, there could be a smell in a car. But on a bike, you don't get that smell. I'll tell you a funny little story. When I moved back to the United States, I went to a wedding, and I was wearing a suit that I didn't get cleaned, since I lived in London. And I put this suit on, and I could smell, it smelled like the roads of London, which sounds kind of gross, but you could smell like a little bit of like the bus fumes and the asphalt. You could just smell the city in my suit that I was wearing, and it brought back such fond memories. It was really weird, but kind of, how your sense of smell can just take you places. And mine took me right back to riding my bike through London, and it was a great little memory there.
Senses of smell. I have to tell you, just a funny quick story. My father passed away a number of years ago, and he loved to go down and get these special hot dogs. So there was a restaurant that opened out in the area here in Southern California, and they specialized. It was Detroit food and, Detroit pizza and Detroit hot dogs. I thought, okay, in his memory, I'll stop by and get one. The minute I smelled it, I started crying. All of a sudden, I was a kid again with my dad at the baseball. And I thought, how weird. Just the smell of a stinking hot dog here could bring that kind of thing. So I would guess, again, if you're more engaged with your surroundings, you're taking in not just the scenery, but the sights and the sounds and the smells.
Yeah. And you're going a little slower, of course, on a bike, even a Pedego. I'd probably ride at maybe 10 to 15 miles an hour, and you have the opportunity to see so much more. Like the beauty of the city, the buildings. A lot of times when people are touring cities, they never look up. No. They just kind of look at the sidewalk. But if you step back and look around a little bit, you just see so much more. And I would ride by the famous art museums or cathedrals or churches or just really cool places that you've seen in movies. Yeah. And you could really take it all in. I miss that part of living in London more than any other thing that I miss about it. And I love living in London. Don't get me wrong. It's a fabulous city. But, my commute to work now is about 30 seconds. I ride my bike, of course, but I live less than a half a mile from my shop. So I kind of miss that experience that I had when I got to ride my bike for 7.7 miles, which took me typically 22 minutes.
22 minutes to go 7 miles in downtown traffic. One last question about London, and then we'll segue into how you segued into from the Air Force to the Pedego Force here.
Right, yep.
Let's talk one more thing about London. I'm fascinated. It's supposedly lots of little quaint shops and lots of little quaint communities and lots of little pubs and stuff along the way. Does pedaling a bike, or were you just dedicated to get there and I got to get there as quick as I can? Or did you meander and go down, I don't know, back alleys and stop at a shop or grab a pint on the way home or something? I don't know.
I always got there as quickly as I could because, we're always late to work.
Right.
So I didn't dilly-dally on the way to work, but I can tell you on the way home, I did a lot of exploring, or I'd have my wife meet me. I ended up getting my wife a Pedego for our 25th anniversary, which she was furious about. Who wants a bike for their anniversary?
Yeah, right.
Well, I can tell you one person that did not want a bike for her anniversary, and that was my wife. But after she got it, she got it and she fell in love with it as well. And so she could meet me someplace. We could, on the way home from work, I'd say, hey, meet me over at the pub over there or whatever.
Yeah.
And she'd ride on over, and we had a trailer for our dog, our golden retriever. She could take our dog.
Oh, man.
And we could go enjoy parts of London that nobody else gets to do because they didn't have a way to do it.
How cool. All right. So now you get out of the Air Force. Did you retire or your enlistment was up? I don't know how it worked.
Yeah. So I retired after 26 years. You can retire after 20 years and get a retirement check, but I stayed a little longer. And I stayed till around 26 years. When you retire as a young person, I was not even 50 at the time. I knew I had to get another job. So I actually got hired on with the government to work in Germany at the same place that I had worked previously prior to moving to London. So okay. I got hired on to be a civilian, and I was very excited about that. It was a difficult process, to go through all the steps to get hired and
clearances and stuff. And
I had all the clearances, but I mean, it is to get hired into the government service program at that level. It was a pretty senior level. It was difficult. And so I got hired, and the entire time I was going through that retirement process, which is quite a process after 26 years, you don't just wake up one day and say, I'm done. It's an emotional it's a thought provoking process. What am I going to do with the rest of my life kind of thing? I couldn't get out of my mind the idea of opening up a Pedego shop. In fact, I wanted to open one up in London. I had cracked the code on commuting. Other people that rode bikes couldn't believe it. They would pull up next to me and say, how do you do that? Why you don't look all that fit? I mean, how do you ride your bike at 20 miles an hour? And I'm like, well, it's electric. And their jaws would drop. And this was kind of before the electric bike revolution, in the 2013 timeframe. And they couldn't believe it. So I thought, man, I could revolutionize the way people commute through London by opening up a shop. And so I kind of explored that a little bit, but it was so expensive for an American to open up a business in the UK. You have to have liquid assets, a lot of liquid asset. And, they don't want to take a risk. It's a very difficult process. So I put it out of my mind that I couldn't do it in London. And I was moving on towards that Germany job. And then a friend of mine who worked at the embassy, we went out to dinner one day, and I kept talking about maybe opening up a Pedego shop sometime, even after my Germany stint as a civilian. And she goes, well, you just need to go to the U.S. and look around, because Myrtle Beach had kind of popped into my mind. Look around, and if you don't, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. At that moment, I said, you know what, you're right. So I went back to work on Monday. I booked a flight. I flew my son down from Philadelphia, who was at Temple University at the time. I got a little room, and we stayed in Myrtle Beach, right at the same exact area that my shop's in, for about 3 or 4 days. I scouted out the location of where my shop is, where I'm sitting at this exact moment. I found an apartment to rent because I didn't want to commit to a house, because what if this business idea just went belly up?
Right.
And maybe I don't like Myrtle Beach. Well, it turned out that I found a house. It was actually going to be cheaper than the apartment, and it was a brand new house, and blah, blah, blah. And it just, all these things kind of lined up. I called my wife and I said, I know we're getting ready to move to Germany, but what do you think about moving to Myrtle Beach? And she goes, I love the beach. And so I made the call at that exact moment. I got on the phone to my general. He was an Army general that I was going to work for. And I told him what I was going to do. And he was disappointed, but he told me that I had the biggest you-know-whats of anybody he'd ever met.
Yes, right. Biggest wheels.
To throw away this kind of guaranteed really good job with the military, with working as a civilian, to just go open up a bike shop in Myrtle Beach without any idea if it would be successful or not.
And having never been in business, you've been in the military.
I didn't know anything about this. I probably still don't know anything about business, but I'm still here.
So why Myrtle Beach?
So that's a good question. I went to the University of South Carolina in Columbia, and my wife is from the Charleston area, which is in South Carolina. And I talked to Don, our CEO of Pedego, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about maybe opening up a shop, but I'm not sure, blah, blah, blah. He goes, where do you want to do it? And I said, well, I could do it anywhere. Like, I don't have nothing's holding me back. I can do it anywhere in the world. And he goes, well, come on, you got to come up with something. So I named a few places. I had some land in Texas. I have a house in Arkansas. And I said, my wife and I are both went to college in South Carolina. And he goes, Myrtle Beach, you got to do it in Myrtle Beach. And I was like, Myrtle Beach? Seems obvious,
because because of the way the model is, it's not just selling bikes to ride in this, up and down the boardwalk. It's renting the bikes too for that.
That's right.
Summer rental business. Yeah.
Yeah, so well, it was kind of funny because my memories of Myrtle Beach from when I was in college was that this was just kind of like a party town. But Myrtle Beach has revamped itself over the years to become a really family destination.
I didn't know that. I thought it's a party town too. When I went there in college 100 years ago, it was a party town.
Yeah, it was a party town. I mean, we used to come to Myrtle Beach when we were in college, and there was only one thing we were doing here, and that was partying, you know?
Right.
So, but it's a totally different city now than it was back in the 80s. And it's very family oriented, and there's great restaurants and golf, but there's also great biking infrastructure where my shop is. And I got to tell you, this is really weird. My shop is actually on the former military base here. The former
naturally, there's some synergy going on
Myrtle
here.
Beach, Myrtle Beach Air Force Base, and I live in a house that is on the old Air Force Base. So we kind of call it living on base, which I had done for most of my life.
So you've got this connection still there. What's it like being a Pedego dealer? First of all, thank you for your service. Congratulations. But it sounds like this is a pretty high-powered job. You were in an embassy, and then you were going to report to some general. Can you give us any hint of what you did? I mean, is it secret or?
So what I did wasn't secret. I was in charge of an office that handled all the procurement between the U.S. and the U.K. For instance, when the U.K. sells aircraft or tanks or weapons or training or whatever the Air Force is, the connection, the partnership we have with the UK, I was the office that kind of helped all that happen.
All the paperwork and all the contracts or whatever, all the stuff that had to go through you. So my point is this, pretty important job, pretty high level job. What did your friends and family think, like the general, when not just I'm going to go do something I've never done, which is open a small business, but I'm going to do this kind of fun leisure business. It's like you were going to open a surf shop or something. And people say the only people who do that are people who've fanatical surfers or fanatical bike riders or whatever. They're people who are already having fun and living this lifestyle. Yeah.
And so I wasn't really a cyclist. I mean, I rode a bike. I mean, I knew how to ride a bike, but I wasn't one of these guys that put on my cycling gear and raced across the city. For one, I was blown away by how much I loved riding a Pedego. I mean, and everybody knew it. I mean, I put it on Facebook. I want to say that I helped create the Facebook owners group because I was one of the first people that actually put photos of my bike all over London. Yeah. And I would put things like, guess what famous movie was filmed here? And The Omen actually was filmed right near where I live.
I remember The Omen.
And so there's like this old church there. So I put my bike in front of that church. If you go back long enough on the Facebook Pedego page, you can probably find it. But, I put it in front of Buckingham Palace or whatever. So other people started doing this. So everybody knew how much I loved my Pedego and how much I loved riding.
Your passion for Pedegos was well documented. Okay.
And all my friends knew, everybody knew. So although they were pretty surprised that I would give up this kind of career that I had built for 26 years to go do it, I don't think they were totally shocked. I've always been kind of a fun kind of guy. I think, at least that's what I think.
You seem fun. So, okay, I'll support that. Yeah.
You'll go with that. So I wasn't, it says hell of fun right above my head. I got to be a fun guy.
Exactly.
Every day I walk in the shop, it reminds me to have fun today.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a huge, stretch for people to believe that I would do something like this. But I will tell you that a lot of people, I guess, didn't understand that this could be successful.
Do it for a while. He'll get this out of his system and he'll be back. Yeah.
Right. Or it probably won't work. Nobody knows what an electric bike is, No one's going to get it. Why would someone ride an electric bike in the first place? Isn't that cheating? All these things. It's a dumb idea, blah, blah, blah. And so
all the things that I'm sorry to interrupt, but all the things that the traditional bike dealers have said for years, it's cheating.
Right.
Who wants that? And that's why they didn't embrace it. It's been entrepreneurs like you guys from the outside, many who came with a passion already for the product, that's proven the success of this model.
No, I agree. I mean, to this day, I have people that will visit other shops in the area and looking for electric bikes who may or may not carry them, but they typically come to my store and tell me that the other people didn't speak that highly of an electric bike. And I said, probably because it's a lot harder to sell, a $3,000 bike than it is a $300 bike.
So
maybe they didn't want to work hard enough.
Good point. All right. So last thing I want to get to, we got about 5 minutes left in the show here. So what's the journey been like? Is it what you expected? Was it? How was it different? Give us a little sense of this this part of the journey, this ride here.
It has, to say that it has changed my life would be an understatement, because everything about my life right now is because I joined the Pedego family. I mean, that sounds a little kind of hokey, but it's true. I mean, 90% of my friends that I have in Myrtle Beach, which I have to tell you, I have hundreds of them, are customers of mine. And I have changed their lives through this bike.
Yeah.
Whether they're young people or old people, whether they have families or their kids have all moved out, they ride by my shop. If my door were open now, people would be riding by my shop and yelling, "Aaron, I love my bike," as they ride by. And I hear it every single day. I'm not kidding.
God, yeah.
It's one of the most rewarding aspects of this job to know that what we're doing in this industry with Pedego is changing people's lives. And I got a text today from a guy. He goes, "I just wanted to let you know that I love my bike. It far exceeded my expectation." And it's those things. I get a little kind of a climp when I talk about it, because it's so,
okay.
To me, it's a very emotional part of what we do. We're not just selling a product and we tell the guy, "See you later," kind of, "I hope I never see you again," kind of thing. No. If you looked around my shop, I could show you gifts that people make me. And in fact, I don't know, like somebody made me these cookies. Can you see that?
Yeah, look
That's
at that.
Cookie.
A Pedego cookie, yeah.
People have given me artwork. They bring by, oftentimes they'll bring by food for me to eat. They must think I don't eat enough. But, things that they personally, I had a lady, she quilted a little banner that says Pedego. I'm looking at it now. It says "Hello Fun, Pedego Myrtle Beach." It's incredible the differences that we're making in people's lives. And all we did was we sold them a bike.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
But it's part of something bigger that's taking place. That's what we're trying to put our finger on here. This movement, this EBike Revolution, where people are getting back out that probably haven't ridden in a while. They're engaging. They're being social. They're getting healthy. I've heard all the different aspects of it here. What would you tell anybody who's thinking about an e-bike and wondering, is it for me?
Well, let me speak specifically about Pedego, because e-bikes are not created the same and companies aren't the same. I have a lot of customers who buy other brands of e-bikes prior to coming into my shop because they can get them cheaper. They can go online and buy an e-bike.
And there's tons of them out there. Yeah.
There's tons of them. But they don't get the experience that I'm talking about.
Right.
They don't write that company that they bought that bike from online and tell them how much they love their bike. I promise you they don't. They don't drop by and give that person gifts and bring them food, because they don't even know that person. They have no connection whatsoever, and they don't even love their bike. But when they get on a Pedego, they fall in love with it. I'll have people that come by my shop and they go, I have an electric bike. And I go, "Oh, what brand is it?" They go, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, it's not a Pedego then, because if you had a Pedego, you would know."
Yeah.
It's so I don't want to say that all e-bikes are created equal. When we say that this revolution is changing lives, I think Pedego electric bikes are changing lives. And clearly other ones probably are too, but not to the extent that we are.
One of the things I've heard over and over again, and Don has said this, and other dealers have said this, and other customers have said this, when somebody buys this product, they have a tendency to say, "I'm going to go ride my Pedego," as opposed to saying, "I'm just going to go ride my e-bike, my electric bike." It'd be as if I'm saying, I'm going to go, and there are some people who are passionate about cars like that. Some people, it's just a way to get around. I don't know. I have a Kia. I talk about it all the time. I don't know that I get to say to people, "Hey, let's go ride the Kia." Like it's that exciting. Let's get in my car. But if I had a Ferrari or I had something really fun, maybe a Jeep or something, I probably would say, "Hey, let's jump in my Jeep." So I think it's that kind of connection people have with it. Well, it's an amazing story. How do people reach you if they want to ride along and join the journey here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina?
Yeah, they could always hit up my social media. So Pedego Electric Bikes in Myrtle Beach on Facebook. They can contact me by my phone number, which can I give my phone number out? Is that
absolutely.
Okay? Yeah, so that's area code 843-602-6941. And they can email me at Aaron at Pedego MB. MB stands for Myrtle Beach. PedegoMB.com.
How cool. Well, I don't want to hold you too long, because even trying to get you on, somebody's calling for a bike, somebody pulled up in a car. I mean, people are
somebody walked up, they want to rent some bikes. I told them to come back in a few minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I have one last question here. I went to Myrtle Beach once. It was 100 million years ago. I was in college, and they did some goofy dance called the shag. Did they still do that and have these clam bakes and beach parties?
I don't know how much time you have, but I actually was in Shagging with the Stars.
See?
They created a fundraiser, and I donated the bike organization, but I was one of the contestants that was shagging with the stars. So they paired me up with like a professional shagger, and they taught me how to dance. Shagging is a dance, ladies and gentlemen. I did live in London, and it definitely means something different there.
Yes, yes. If you're going to,
I was with Shagging with the Stars. I didn't win, but I did a pretty good job. I had a great time.
All right. Well, we might shag along. We might join in if I can get down to Myrtle Beach. It's a fun place, and it's fun to hear your story. Thanks so much for joining us here.
Thanks for having me
on the Pedego podcast. Well, there you have it, folks. The wildest stories, the craziest stories, the entrepreneurial stories, and the love stories of those just riding along. As Pedego picks up steam across the country, and the momentum just keeps building. Right here in the Pedego podcast, part of the OC Talk Radio Network.